Cooper Kupp was a late round pick. Puka Nacua was a late round pick. Kyron Williams was a late round pick. So hold on, you're telling me that guy who always finds the gems decided Blake Corum was a day 2 pick for his franchise. That guy is so important to me. I'm going to take him day 2, even though I can turn the guy working at Walmart into a top 12 running back for fantasy football. But I'm going to take Blake Corum.
Top 50 rookie rankings now solidified. And we're going to help you dominate your rookie drafts. So let's not waste any more time. Zach, take us through your first tier.
Yes, we said don't judge us after day 1 or day 2 for our rankings, but after day 3, then you can kind of judge. We've had enough time to digest this as much as we possibly can.
That's right.
What I will say is if you have a different opinion, there's actually no problem with that. You know, let's just make sure we keep respect across the board both ways. At the 101, it's still Caleb Williams for me. I still have him in the same tier. Or in the same way. I would only draft him first. I have no problem if some people say, well, Marvin's in there. That's totally fine. I just think in a super flex league, he is going to be the most valuable asset from now all the way up until September at minimum. So if you want to trade him, I still think he'll get the most value out of a trade, even if you don't need quarterback. At the 102, 104, we've got Marvin, Daniels, and Neighbors. That's pretty rock solid for
locked
me.
in.
I'm just going to go through like the top 8 because that's really solidified for you and I.
Yeah.
So that is rock solid. I think both of us have the same top 4. Correct me if I'm wrong before I continue.
No, same top 4, exactly how you have it listed so far.
Okay, and Daniels, I will say, for anyone who hasn't been watching our videos, I have a sneaky feeling, man. I got a feeling that guy could be the most valuable asset in Dynasty Superflex leagues this time next year from this class. Okay. I know we all love Caleb, but with what Daniels can do on the ground, with what they've built around him through the draft and free agency, I wouldn't be shocked, man. I wouldn't be shocked if he puts up a top 8 points per game season as a rookie.
That's fair.
The 105 and the 106. I think these guys are just as talented as the 104, the 102 to the 104, but I wouldn't draft them over those names in the top 4. That's just my personal opinion. I've been flip-flopping Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, but the Patriots did enough for me around the draft to show me they're going to build around Drake May. I do think Drake is a superior prospect. Yes, situation matters so much, but I like the direction I'm seeing. They picked up one of my favorite wide receivers in Javon Baker. They drafted Jalen Polk. They're starting to take it seriously, trying to build around a guy like Drake May. They even got Jaheim Bell late in the draft. He's a fun little weapon, but I feel good now about taking Drake, but still, Badaki, I would like to trade from the 105 to the 106 and get a second round pick and have someone make that decision for me. Ultimately, that would be my favorite decision there at those 2 picks.
Yeah, look, it definitely makes sense. I think pick your poison. I think obviously you can think of J.J. McCarthy in his situation with, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. It just feels like success. It feels like it's written in ink that he is going to be a top quarterback in this league because of the weapons. Drake May and the way that they're building around him may be a little bit different. And what if they get a top wide receiver next year? What if they get a T. Higgins? What if they get a Brandon Ayuk? Not saying that's going to happen, but if add one of these proven already names onto this roster for Drake May, there's a completely different conversation here. I'm going to continue with my rankings and my belief in the talent and my process. The scouting process that I've done, I had Drake May ahead, significantly ahead of J.J. McCarthy for me. So I do have Drake May as my 105 and JJ as my 106. But not you specifically, but the fantasy community, I'm genuinely happy any way you want to put it. J.J. McCarthy as your 105 or Drake May as your 106. I get it.
We have to acknowledge how important supporting cast is. It wouldn't shock me if JJ ends up being the better quarterback for fantasy. So we have to acknowledge that. And also, I think he's a very good prospect. Him on the run is very underrated, and he is a play extender. The NFL loves that. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell will love that. All right, at the 107, the 108, this is where nothing has changed for us, but Rome Odunze should be the locked and loaded 107. We're seeing a lot of comments where people are saying, Odunze is not the wide receiver 3. I'm going to push him down my board. I like some of these other spots. Look, the situation in Chicago, he is going to be battling with 2 alphas in Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. But you also have Odunze locked and loaded with Caleb Williams for the next 5 years alone. They are on the same rookie contract. The 5th-year option will be there. So at some point, that will be worth a payoff. All I will say is that we should lower expectations slightly. This is not a situation where Puka Nacua breaks rookie records, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson go out and break all these records for rookies, We think he's extremely talented, but we can also recognize that we should lower expectations because you are battling across two alphas who have led their team in target share their entire career in Keenan and DJ Moore. And then we also have Bo Nix there.
Yeah.
You and I have been on the Bo Nix train for a little while here. We liked him as a prospect. I called him a point guard plus profile before the NFL draft, compared him a little bit to Brock Purdy. And you and I were on the same page saying Sean Payton and Denver is the perfect landing spot. Sean Payton is looking for someone like Bo Nix, who is super smart before the snap, can read the field, can read the defense, can make those adjustments, similar to what Drew Brees gave him. I'm not comparing him to that Hall of Famer, but I think he fits Sean Payton's offense perfectly, and he just got help on day 3, a wide receiver that he knows. We'll talk about that soon, but
that's right.
He is my 108 now in a super flex league. Often, Badaki people say, well, we all know he wasn't worth a first-round pick. Why are we going to draft him high? What do you mean? He was a first-round pick, right? The hit rate for a first-round quarterback is 59%. You might not think he was worthy of a first-round pick, but a team in the NFL draft thought he was worthy of a first-round pick. So I'm still going to take him in the first round of a super flex draft.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to take him. I'm going to take his talent, take the quarterback position in a super flex draft. You know, we kind of emphasize and put a lot of weight on the quarterback position. With a top 12 draft capital, I can understand. I've seen people, I'd rather have Brian Thomas Jr., I'd rather have Ladd McConkey, I'd rather have all these other players and Brock Bowers. Still, the quarterback position in a super flex league, with the hit rate, like you said, 59.4% in the first round, is extremely, I would say, I want to use a better word than important, but, you know, it puts so much weight and emphasis on someone like a Bo Nix that I feel like you kind of have to take him here at the 108. And if you don't believe him, that's fine. Maybe trade back or see what else you can get. Because if somebody out there that does believe in Bo Nix, like myself and Zach, I'm happy to take a top 12 quarterback with the hit rate, a successful hit rate in the first round at the 108 every single time.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, there will just be people who just don't like him as a prospect, and I can totally understand. But we know if a quarterback hits in fantasy football, they end up being the most valuable assets in rookie drafts, point blank, period. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what you think of Knicks, we can agree on that, I think.
Agreed.
109, 111, slight change. Slight changes happened here. Brian Thomas is still my 109, but Ladd McConkey has moved ahead of Xavier Worthy by one spot. Now, I know technically Xavier gets that first round draft capital, and Ladd is technically a second rounder. So when you look at those hit rates historically, first round is a lot more favorable. But we have to be honest, the context of this draft and how unique this draft is very, very important. This draft, we said it before, the NFL draft happened. We'll say it again now. You'll get first round talents in round 2.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And the Chargers ultimately traded up to the second pick in the second round. It's so close for Ladd McConkey, a guy that you and I had ahead of Xavier Worthy in our pre-NFL draft scouting grades. A guy that you and I preferred as a prospect, and a guy who is facing less competition, in my opinion, and still attached to an elite quarterback, right? You're now facing Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, right? Whereas Xavier Worthy has to compete with Kelsey, Rice, Hollywood. I still think these guys are in the same tier, but I do think trying to include context, historical hit rate, and draft capital all together, as well as scouting grades, this is where my mind has melted to with Ladd here right ahead of Xavier.
Yeah, no question about it. And I kind of said that yesterday about Ladd McConkey, and I think the conversation could even be said, in my personal opinion, about Brian Thomas Jr. if you did watch the other videos after day 2 of the NFL draft. I kind of mentioned about potentially moving Ladd ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. Have I done that? No. But I will not be surprised, and I say you are not crazy if you want to take Ladd McConkey over Brian Thomas Jr. Sure. So keep that in mind if you're in the comments.
The reason I can't move him ahead of Brian is because I had Brian as a higher graded prospect. Mm-hmm. He went higher in the NFL draft, and he goes to a landing spot to a quarterback I like. So that's why I can't do it, but I definitely get the Worthy Ladd.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, the reason why I think that's okay is because Ladd and Brian Thomas are my pre-draft analysis, I guess my prospect breakdown, they were back-to-back in my rankings. So the gap there, in my opinion, is not too big when it comes down to Ladd and Xavier. That was a pretty significant gap. But yes, I think this tier is fine the way it is. in my personal opinion. But not crazy if you do have Lad as the first guy in this tier.
We are about to get into the next tier, but we got to let you guys know about something exciting we're doing here on the DynastyLand channel. Our rookie report is finished. It's ready to go. Version 4, the final version, is ready for you. If you want access to that, become a Motherflocker member with the promo code LAND. 1 quarterback, super flex rankings, both positional rankings.
Yes.
Obviously, we're including tiers. We also, in that rookie report, have historical hit rate data, so you know exactly what to bet, even in rounds 3 and 4. It gives you a little guide there. Profiles for every single player, pro comps, and it's the best report we've ever put together. Not only do you get our rookie report, by the way, you also get a Dynasty team review, where we will review your team on a live stream. Maybe you don't know what to do with your picks. Are you a contender? Should you rebuild? Is it a 1-year punt? Is there a good trade out there for you? Well, on those Dynasty team reviews, we break that down with you on a live stream. You can even check out the Flock Fantasy site here. You can sync your leagues. You can see where you stand amongst the rest of your league. And we are constantly improving the site over there, and we love those team reviews where we get to help you guys out. So become a Mother Flocker member. Use the code LAND, and let's kill this rookie draft season. Let's go on to the next tier. This is where things get a little crazy. And, you know, the community is really unhappy with our ranking of Brock Bowers. Let me just say, if you want to take Brock Bowers as high as the 108, you want to take him over Bo Nix, be my guest. We have no problem with that. What a lot of people are not listening to is where we are coming from. These are non-tight end premium rankings. So we're coming from the perspective of a 12-man league, let's say, where you can trade for a starting tight end pretty easily. You know, I can go get a Kittle pretty easily, right? Not saying that Bowers isn't going to be generational. We love him as a prospect. Not saying he's going to be a game-changing guy, but this is the tier where we start to think about him right around end of the first round. I have Benson, I have Brooks ahead of him, then I have Bowers, then Penix, and Ricky Pearsall. That is this tier for me. That late first, early second. Again, if you want to take Bowers at the 108, or you think he's worthy of the 106, then that's okay. But let me ask you, what is the format of your league? The format we are talking about is no tight end premium, 12-man. In those type of leagues, it's pretty easy to get a starting tight end. Not to say that Bowers isn't going to be generational and next level and all that, okay? All right. But if you're telling me, well, I'm in an 8-man and there's a full point premium, 2 points per reception for a tight end. Of course, that would change things drastically. Let's move him over Bo Nix. Well, I'm in a 14-man and there's a 2-point premium. Okay, maybe you could consider taking this guy right ahead of a Dunze, right? So context is so important for the tight end position because of how many different ways leagues value tight ends. Every 100%. League is so different. We love Bowers. We think he's an incredible prospect. I'm so excited to see him used as a slot hybrid type of guy. I will draft him if he's available, but I personally still prefer those running backs in Benson and Brooks off the board first. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What do you think, Badaki? Where do you sit?
I completely agree. And we said this on our live stream. Think about what happened last year. Put Brock Bowers in the best case scenario right now. If Brock Bowers were to have a Sam Laporta type of season in his rookie year, and hypothetically, Ricky Pearsall has and that's in the same tier, keep in mind, Ricky Pearsall has a Puka Nacua type season. Who was more valuable?
Which won't happen, but let's say Lad does.
Lad. That's what I'm saying, which won't happen. Okay, sure, Lad McConkey. If Lad McConkey has a Puka Nacua type season, who's more valuable? Please put it in the comments. Who can you get more value from in return? Everyone will say Puka Nacua because at the moment, if I were to send Zach a trade and me having Puka Nacua or me having Sam Laporta and I'm trying to acquire Puka Nacua, Zach is going to say absolutely not. Why? Because the wide receiver position is valued significantly higher because you can get a tight end that may be generational, that may have a breakout type of season in his rookie year, is not going to be valued the same as a wide receiver and maybe even a potential running back, depending on how that breakout actually is, right?
So just to add on to that, like at the end of the day, if a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end all reach their ceiling as a rookie, their tippy top ceiling, a tight end will be the least valuable of all those positions if all those positions
And once again, that is Sam Laporta. That's it. That is the answer.
The best rookie tight end season we've ever seen.
Yes, and he's still not as valuable as the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, or the quarterbacks and the wide receivers that we saw go in his draft class, which is
by the way, if you play in a full point premium, maybe in that league someone does prefer Laporta over Puka. And don't hear what Badaki is not saying. Badaki is not saying Ladd McConkey is going to be Puka Nacua.
Yes, I'm not saying
if
that.
Ladd McConkey has a top 20 season on a per game basis and Brock Bowers is top 12 on a per game basis, who's going to be more valuable in a non-tight end premium league? Who will be more valuable in a half tight end premium league? I think it would be Ladd McConkey. Now, of course, some players are going to hit, some players will not hit, but ultimately you have to decide what sort of lottery ticket you're trying to bet on in the late first round.
Agreed.
And this is an incredibly valuable draft. Brock Bowers would be a top 6 pick in so many drafts, but it's so deep. Like, this draft broke records. It had the most offensive players in round 1. It's like one of the best offensive classes we've ever seen. So we don't think it's unreasonable to have a conversation around it.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's completely unreasonable. Bowers has got to go at the 107, 108. You're stupid. He's generational. And I think we so quickly forget, Badaki, that we are only a couple years removed from Kyle Pitts being the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft, and it doesn't always work out for a tight end. The last thing I'll say is Sam Laporta might have set some extremely unhealthy expectations.
Yeah.
Okay? Before Sam Laporta's rookie year, the average fantasy finish for a rookie tight end in the last decade from 2012 to 2022 was tight end 25. That was the average finish for a first round tight end from 2012 to 2022. Tight end 25 was the average finish. Now, Sam Laporta was an outlier. Dalton Kincaid is maybe a better range of outcomes for a guy like Brock Bowers.
Sure.
First round tight end, had some really good production, finished top 12, right? But still, even Kincaid, is he more valuable than some of those wide receivers that you want to trade for in Dynasty? So I think we're not opposed to people having a different opinion. We're just opposed to people not being open-minded at all to hearing what we think. And that's okay if you don't agree.
And that is okay.
It's just like, just have a conversation. You know, what if I told you last year that I was taking Laporta over Kincaid in a rookie draft? You would have said, you're an absolute idiot. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Kincaid is connected to Laporta. He's a first round pick. Like, you're an idiot. This is nonsense. You know, what if I told you Quentin Johnson was off my board last year? Would it have mattered? Would you have called us an idiot? I mean, you know, just throwing out hypotheticals. So no one knows what the next year is going to look like. We should be way more open as a Dynasty community to differences of opinion. We should be way more open to that.
Yeah. And, you know, and I guess it's one thing to close it out, like you kind of mentioned, insert Adults at Kincaid type of season finish, like you said, top 12. You finish as a tight end 11. You would rather have a Ladd McConkey, a Brian Thomas Jr., and Xavier Worthy, depending on who you are, because of the draft capital, because of the landing spot, because of the situations, because of the projections that you're bringing out on some of these players. So just to wrap that up there.
And that's assuming that those guys don't bust. They could.
Exactly.
But the range of outcomes is just a little bit more enticing for us in a non-tight end premium format. 100%. So hopefully we explain
that's
well,
okay.
Some people will be reasonable. Some people will unsubscribe because of it. And that's okay.
And look, another thing, because I did hear or see a couple comments, and this is genuinely the last thing. Some people still value the talent over landing spot. And I think there's an even balance, and there's not a perfect science to that in fantasy football, right? There's no perfect balance. Some people say Brock Bowers has top 12 draft capital, and he has a generational talent. Great. But still is not going to be producing, or not saying he's not going to produce, but still, what is that outcome going to look like in a fantasy perspective on a per game basis? We just don't know. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like the best thing, him going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And we could be putting our foot in our mouths.
I don't even hate the landing spot, though. That's the thing. I like it. I mean, you have to ask questions long term about who the quarterback is there, because in 2025, there's not many prospects we like. But I actually like the landing spot. I'm coming around to it. I still think this is where I sit. Benson Brooks, running back prospects that you and I have been obsessed with the entire pre-draft process. You and I have been in love with these guys.
Yep.
And the hit rate on their round with that kind of talent is just very enticing. And at the end of the day, I only need to find one tight end to start in a Dynasty League. A lot of people will hate that. They won't be able to hear it. That's okay. But
completely agree.
Let's get on to the 205 to the 208.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the 209. Something's changed here. Something's in the water.
Something's in the water.
Xavier Legette here, I think, is my locked and loaded 205. If he's there, I'm going to be drafting him.
Sure.
Another name that people thought we were way too low on was Keon Coleman. This is where I would have him, right in that mid-second range. That would put him at the 206, if I'm not mistaken. I like Keon. We were not very high on him pre-NFL draft. A lot of people said he would go first round. It's a technicality. He does go second round. I'm not pushing him down a board because he's a second round pick. He was already not high in our scouting grades before the NFL draft, okay? In fact, he's actually moved up my board since the NFL draft, right? I like the landing spot. I like the idea of him with Josh Allen. He needs that gunslinger. I've compared him a lot to Kenny Golladay, so I could see a very successful career for him in Buffalo, but I'm still going to bet on those other guys ahead of him. You guys might not, and that's totally okay. I got Polk here, I got Burton, and a new addition. We called it yesterday. We said Bo Nix could get his friend in town in Denver.
We both said it, yep.
This is where I bring in Troy Franklin.
Oh, boy.
My 209 right here, right now. And
I love it.
Round 4 hit rates are awful
Atrocious.
for wide receivers.
100%.
They are 5.3%, okay? But we also try to combine all these different things when doing a rookie ranking, and one of them is context. The context is so important here. Number one, Troy was a wide receiver you and I really liked when we scouted him.
Yes.
We had him very high. The NFL draft did not. Okay, understandable. However, he goes to Denver, links up with his quarterback in Bo Nix. There is already years and years of experience. Years and years of friendship, of camaraderie, of
100%.
Chemistry. And now you're going to go into rookie camp and you're going to blow people away, in my opinion. And I know Cortland Sutton is there. There's no long-term deal, though. So I don't see a scenario where it's off the table that Troy could produce in year one. That is really enticing to me. I know the draft capital is bad, but that is one of those rare scenarios where I'm like, I can see it. I'm going to probably take a bet on this guy.
I completely agree. And I think however way you guys want to put this tier, I actually have Troy ahead of Jermaine in my personal rankings. This is what I would say. And I said this on our live stream as well. I'm not comparing these guys to these players, but it's just a situation. We've seen Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We've seen, Hollywood Brown going back with Kyler Murray and how that looks like. We saw, name a quarterback, a wide receiver.
You know what came to mind?
Who?
And this is a little bit different because they didn't play, but it almost reminds me of like the Texans going and getting C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell last year. I know it's different. They didn't play in college, but that's one of those conversations you have with Bo Nix after you draft him. Like, should we go get your guy Troy? And they're like, he's like, yeah, go get my guy Troy. That's what it sounds like to me.
And look, we didn't see here that CJ Stroud specifically Tank Dell conversation until like a couple of days after the NFL draft, until they were like, oh, they went to go get Tank Dell? CJ wanted Tank? And I'm pretty sure, and if that report does come out, if Bo Nix does come out saying, yeah, they called me, asked me who I want, should I go get Troy Franklin? Like, we have rapport. If that report comes out,
for him.
how much weight do you put on that situation? Anyways, basically what I'm trying to say is we've seen the rapport with some of these wide receivers in the NFL getting their wide receiver quarterback combo from college and going into the pros. Some have been successful, some haven't, but this feels like the perfect combination for both Troy Franklin and Bo Nix to start off on the right foot. Having Sean Payton as one of the best head coaches we've seen in the past 10, 15 years that we saw bring Drew Brees to the next level. Obviously, Hall of Fame quarterback, completely different quarterback and talent, but you get what I'm saying here. The situation is exciting. I have.
We know before last year, Sean Payton has a long history of successful offenses. Top 5, top 10 points per game, total points from offenses in his 10, 12, 13-year history. So
and he knows he has to compete. He's in a tough division, right? Like he has to. He plays the Chiefs twice. He plays the Chargers twice, and the Raiders. It's not easy. He knows he's going to have to score points. So. I like this tier here. Once again, I do have Troy Franklin ahead of Jermaine Burton. I love Jalen Polk's opportunity and outlook here. So yes, I like this.
If anyone's going to be the next great outlier according to hit rates historically, I think it's Troy Franklin.
Yeah.
I agree. So yeah. All right, 210 to 303. Things get a lot more solidified here. Blake Corum, I got here at the 210. I'm sure there's a conversation to be had there. Malachi Corley, Roman Wilson, Adonai Mitchell, Jalen McMillan, and Marshawn Lloyd. Do we want to talk about Blake first?
Yeah, let's talk about Blake here. Obviously, day 2 capital going to the Los Angeles Rams here. Now, the biggest question marks. Okay, where's that workload coming from? Kyron Williams had an incredible outlook here, but you have him here at the 210. Take us through it.
Yeah, this might be higher than other people, but look, what is Sean McVay the king of? Sean McVay is the king of late round values. Cooper Kupp was a late round pick. Puka Nacua was a late round pick. Kyron Williams was a late round pick. He is the king of late round values and turning them into productive players in the NFL. So hold on, you're telling me that guy who always finds the gyms decided Blake Corum was a day 2 pick for his franchise. That guy is so important to me. I'm going to take him day 2, even though I can turn the guy working at Walmart into a top 12 running back for fantasy football. But I'm going to take Blake Corum.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Kyron Williams is losing his job, but what I am telling you is I believe Blake Corum is going to be an important part of this offense moving forward. And by the way, Sean McVay, the same coach who has never had a back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher since 2017. Okay? So I think there is something in the water in Los Angeles. And Badaki, you can see who owns Kyron Williams in the comment section. It is clear as day.
Yeah.
Because they cannot accept that in any way Kyron is going to lose any opportunities.
No.
I'm not saying Blake will take that job. I'm saying he will be an important part of this backfield, though.
Yeah, and we were kind of, we were both on the train of, hey, maybe you should trade away Kyron Williams to try and get a late first-round pick. Look what you could have gotten. Now, maybe Blake Corum doesn't take any opportunity away, but you tell me right now, would you rather have Kyron Williams on your team or the 108 to the 111? I think we would all say we would rather have one of those late round, first round picks. So keep that in mind. Maybe it's a win-win for both sides for some of these people, depending on how we find out. It's a win for us, and I think it's also a win for you if Blake Corum doesn't pan out here. So yes, I like Blake Corum here. Adonai Mitchell, I think, is probably the next person we should probably talk about here. He does get decent draft capital. He goes to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say there's no way he should be this low.
It took me a while to really figure out how to place him, and I don't even know if I feel good about it now.
Yeah, second-round draft capital going in the middle of the second there for Adonai Mitchell. He falls into the middle of the second round, which I thought he would at least go in the first round. I thought he was going to be for sure.
Felt
maybe
locked.
Yeah, locking to the Bills or to the Chargers or to the Patriots, but that wasn't the case. One of our biggest concerns is now Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Jonathan Taylor, and Anthony Richardson. Can Anthony Richardson get the ball and produce fantasy-relevant wide receivers with Michael Pittman and now Adonai Mitchell? We have no history of that.
Josh Downs still there.
Yeah, and Josh Downs still there. So we have no history of that coming in. But people love the draft capital, and people love Adonai Mitchell, and they are taking him. I've seen a couple taking him like early, like the 205 to the 209 range, which I just don't think I would want to take him there because I like all these other situations.
Yeah, it's really tough to gauge because you can paint a picture, but it's really difficult to paint that picture for a scenario where Adonai improves value this time to next year. It's just, if you guys remember, this is actually eerily similar to what I said about Josh Downs last year. Do you remember this, Badaki?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, I love Josh Downs, but I'm struggling to paint a picture where he drastically improves his value. I was also notoriously a sell Josh Downs before the NFL draft guy. Not anti-Downs, just anti the situation. We don't know if Anthony Richardson can support even Michael Pittman as a top 12 wide receiver for a full season. He only had 2 games where he was fully healthy. And in one of those games, Pittman scored 27 PPR points. The other game, he scored 6. And he had only 3 catches.
Yeah.
We have no idea. There is no sample size. There is no indication of Anthony Richardson's past in college where he completed under 53% of his passes. And he only started 1 year. There's no indications to us that A-Rich can support more than one weapon or even just one weapon. This is an absolutely fantastic pick for the Indianapolis Colts. It's an incredible value pick for their franchise.
100%.
However, I don't know where the breakout is supposed to come unless an injury happens to Michael Pittman. So unfortunately, I just don't think there's enough volume to go around. And that's why he's pushed down the board a little bit.
This is a good thought process. I wonder how many quarterbacks in the past have produced two fantasy relevant wide receivers. I know I can think of Jalen Hurts, obviously. Russell Wilson has been there. Matthew Stafford. I'm pretty sure C.J. Stroud did it this past year if Tank Dell stayed healthy. Like, I think the list is pretty numbered. And,
it's possible.
Joe Burrow.
Like, A-Rich is going to have to take a big step.
100%. Like, I think we're putting Anthony Richardson, from the names that I just mentioned, would have to be like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Like,
as a passer.
Brock.
Not even fantasy.
Like, Brock Purdy has supported two fantasy relevant wide receivers.
It's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. It's just, I feel like it's going to be a lot harder than what we are kind of expecting at the moment here. Malachi Corley, obviously, to the New York Jets in the third round, first pick in the third round. It's an interesting landing spot. He could play that slot receiver, maybe even be the wide receiver too. I know Mike Williams is there, but can he stay healthy? This is maybe a wait and see type of approach, but I think going here at the 211 is phenomenal. I have him around that range. And Roman Wilson going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I also think is a phenomenal spot. And I said this on our live stream. I think there is a pathway where Roman can surpass George Pickens, but this also has told us that, hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers do trust in George Pickens without drafting a day one wide receiver or even a round 2 wide receiver with all the talent that was on the board. They could have gotten a Brian Thomas Jr. They could have gotten a Lam McConkey and Adonai Mitchell. Any of those guys they could have gotten in the first round. That wasn't the case. And they go get Roman Wilson in the third here. But I think it's a phenomenal landing spot.
I think this is great for George Pickens owners, to be honest with you, because I think Roman Wilson is the perfect fit to complement him and not take away from him. A Brian would have been frustrating. A Brian Thomas, a Ladd might have been frustrating because of my comp with Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
But I think every move they've made this offseason, the Steelers, they've indicated to us that they think George can be their alpha. Last two names, McMillan. I love me some Jalen McMillan. Y'all know that's my favorite player in the draft. Chris Godwin is an undrafted free agent after this year. So I will still draft a lot of McMillan, but the pathway towards success is a little bit tough to paint, like we said with Adonai right now.
Yeah.
And then Marshawn Lloyd. I still think we should give some respect to Marshawn Lloyd. He got day 2 capital. We know how good that hit rate is for running backs. You and I loved Lloyd as a prospect.
Yep.
Now, we know that Josh Jacobs is going to dominate there. However, if there's an injury, Lloyd can take that role. Dylan is not concerning us.
No.
And also, Josh Jacobs has a huge out after this year in his contract. If he is not performing the way that the Packers want, maybe they move on from him. There's a possibility that they could. So, feel good about Lloyd there.
Yeah, Lloyd is definitely an interesting prospect. I think this is a long play. And the one thing I keep thinking of is Jerome Ford type of situation.
Yes, great.
You just have to draft the guy that you believe in and is talented. And you saw Jerome Ford be like a top 24, 25 running back, if I'm not mistaken, when this past year. Obviously, Nick Chubb had to go down because of that. But it could be as simple as Zach said, as simple as maybe Josh Jacobs having a high ankle sprain and missing 4 to 5 games and saying, you know what, we can get out of this contract. We got Marshawn Lloyd. That's what the pathway is, and that's why I've always been scared about Josh Jacobs' contract.
By the way, Badaki, did the Raiders just do the same thing? Jacobs missed a couple games and Zamir White filled the role perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen it before.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money on that contract. But third rounders, these are guys that are locked and loaded into third round. I can't tell you exactly what order, but this is how I would currently view them.
Okay.
Javon Baker.
Love it.
He might even be worthy of being put inside that top, 210 to 303.
Yeah.
I love Javon Baker. He's one of my favorite sleepers in this class, and I'm so glad he went to a spot where there is a pathway we could paint towards production. Both Baker and Jalen Polk will have their rookie camp with Drake May. They'll be able to build chemistry with Drake May throughout the entire offseason. And if you're telling me I have to draft Polk in the second round, and or I could wait until round 3 and draft Baker, I'll probably draft Baker in round 3 more than I will Polk in round 2. And it's not anti-Polk. I love Polk, but I just think Baker is a very good prospect in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Sinnott I have here, drafted round 2 by the Commanders.
Yep.
Tucker Kraft was my favorite comp for him. I'm very curious to see what Adam Peters has in mind for his tight end. I know how important that is for his team. He talked about that in an interview.
Yeah.
Jalen Wright. I think is a sneaky, sneaky buy in the third round of rookie drafts. And let me paint you guys a picture, okay? Right now, Raheem Mostert just got signed to a long-term deal.
Right.
Last year, what happened to Raheem Mostert, Badaki, is an anomaly considering his career. And that is him staying healthy all year.
Literally.
That is not common. That guy is always injured. He's already getting up there in his 30s. Yes, they have a 2-year contract, but to me, Jalen Wright is kind of what they're looking for when Raheem Mostert is gone. Big body guy, good frame, ridiculous type of speed. I think he and Devon Achane can complement each other really well, and that's an exciting pick in my opinion when we think about how successful the run game is for Miami with Mike McDaniel over there. Sweet baby Ray Davis, Bucky Irving, Audric Estime, Luke McCaffrey, Tez Walker, Jatavion Sanders, and Tyrone Tracy. Last thing I'll say before I hand over to you, Tyrone Tracy Jr., one of my favorite sleepers in this class. Weird story. Yeah. First 4 years in college, he played wide receiver at Iowa. Mm-hmm. Then he transferred to Purdue, and he transitioned to running back his 5th and 6th years in college. But he dominated. I mean, analytically, he was so clean. His this year in 2023, he was one of the more efficient running backs in the nation. And when I watched him, he reminded me a ton of Rachaad White and Antonio Gibson. That hybrid wide receiver running back, weird running style, a little bit upright, but really interesting as far as what he could do in the air. So I like Tyrone Tracy to your Giants as a sneaky buy in an open backfield. As you know, Singletary's there, but it's open.
Yeah, 100%. I think the argument can definitely be made. Like, hey, Singletary goes down, and what happens? Tyrone Tracy is a phenomenal pickup. Maybe handcuff, maybe even a waiver wire pickup in some leagues, just depending on how deep you guys go. But I do believe he's worthy of a third round here. I'm trying to think if there's anyone that we should potentially hit on for the fantasy community here. I think.
How about Bucky maybe?
I was going to say Bucky, maybe Ray Davis here. So Bucky Irving obviously going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers behind Rachaad White. Another, I would say, win-win type of scenario for the community and for us. I was a big advocate. We were both a big advocate of potentially selling Rachaad White for, once again, that 109 to that 112 type of range. You probably would rather have that pick rather than Rachaad White. But still here, Bucky Irving is not going to make a massive dent into Rachaad White's workload. But still, there's some opportunity that's going to be taken away from him because we saw Todd Bowles and heard Todd Bowles say, we want to relieve this workload. And Rachaad White wasn't the most efficient running back on the ground, but where he got a lot of his production is in the air. And where does Bucky Irving get his production? In the air. So, hey,
that's what concerns
maybe
me. I'm
underplaying it, but I think Rachaad White is still okay. But
I think he's okay, but it's tough. Rachaad White was around 4 picks, same with Bucky. So it's tough when you think about that. But as long as Rachaad White continues to do his thing, I think he'll be all right.
Agreed there. And then Sweet Baby Ray's, who we both love, he goes to the Buffalo Bills. He's going to be, backing up or whatever.
Yeah.
Taking those goal line touches away from James Cook, and we've seen them trying to do that with Leonard Fournette. Damian Harris obviously retired with that neck injury. Sweet Baby Ray's, Latavius Murray. Sweet Baby Ray's most likely is going to be the goal line type of guy. Maybe he takes some opportunity away from James Cook, but I'm still really happy with James Cook's outlook coming into this year. But Ray Davis is more of maybe a Jamal Williams, Detroit Lions type of outlook. And that's a really high ceiling, of course, because Jamal had a career high, but maybe he gets all the goal line carries, and I'm okay with that because James Cook is going to produce on the ground and in the air.
Yes. Take a shot on one of these guys in round 3. McCaffrey got the bloodline. Tez Walker goes to a situation where they just signed Bateman long-term, so it's hard to really bet on him.
Yep.
Sanders is, a good weapon, drafted late. Tough to say historically it's a good pick, but good weapon, and they need, weapons there in Carolina, so maybe he has a chance to establish himself. Estimate, if Sean Payton thinks it's worth it, let's see what it actually ends up being. I still would take Javonte Williams there, but obviously it's interesting. Last thing here, we just want to give you honorable mentions. This is like a dart throw city. We do this every year. What's your favorite dart throw in rounds 4? Okay. because here are some of the ones that I will be throwing. These are some of the darts I'll be throwing. Theo Johnson went to your Giants. Darren Waller is gone. Eric All went to the Bengals. We saw Tanner Hudson and Joe Burrow form a nice little connection before Joe Burrow went down last year. That's interesting to me. Jacob Coing, Jamari Thrash, Brendan Rice, 7th round pick. There has not been a 7th round pick hit in fantasy in the last decade. Okay, so not a great bet, but yeah, some players people like.
Yeah.
Horrendo gets buried to 49ers. Shipley gets buried to the Eagles. Braylon gets buried to the Jets.
Gosh,
Spencer, maybe an interesting, dart throw because of the Derek Carr situation. Kamani Vidal goes to the Chargers round 7. Jared Wiley to the Chiefs and Malik Washington to the Dolphins. Take a dart and throw it at one of these players in round 4, whichever player you like. My favorite dart throw is Theo Johnson, Eric All, and then I would probably say Spencer Rattler.
Yeah,
those is one of those two.
Theo Johnson and Spencer Rattler are my favorite guys coming in. And I guess we can talk about Spencer just for a quick second.
Sure.
Derek Carr missed some time this past year. Jameis Winston is no longer on this team. I think it was Hayner that's still there on this offense, and I forgot the other quarterback. Why not go with the upside in Spencer Rattler? Now, I don't believe in Spencer Rattler, didn't like him, but if he gets some playing time and he becomes a superstar that he was projected to be coming into college back in the day, his first round pick coming out of Arizona. I forgot that college that he was coming out, or high school he was coming out of. But yes, the ceiling is still there. Can he get it together in the NFL here? So that's exciting, I think.
We appreciate y'all big time. Hopefully this is enough. I mean, top 50. I don't know if anyone's doing that. Maybe
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Go kill your drafts, guys. We appreciate you big time. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. All up. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.